everyone, and welcome to our newest edition of NetGalley and BookTrib present 15 Minutes with, a Meryl Mass Media production. We're excited to welcome author Cara Putman to the series. Cara has written more than 21 novels to date, even more than that, and she's also written The Complete Idiot's Guide to Business Law. We'll get into more about that later. Her fictional series includes the Husker Dreams, love-inspired suspense, Ohio Brides, and a number of other contemporary romance, mystery, and historical thrillers. Today, though, we are discussing her newest romantic suspense novel, Beyond Justice, on sale April 4th. Thank you so much for joining us, Cara. We appreciate
Thanks
you being
so much
with
for having us.
Yay! We've got a cover of the book. Let's hold that up again so everyone... There
Yep,
it is. What a
here
great
is Beyond
cover.
Justice. So,
Yay. So let's talk a little bit about Beyond Justice. What can you tell me kind of about the series and the characters? What's going on?
sure. Well, the idea behind the series is that there's this group of law school buddies who have now graduated from George Mason, which was my alma mater, and they're now working in the Washington, D.C. area. And the first book, Beyond Justice, focuses on Hayden McCarthy, and she's on the fast track to becoming a partner, and everything seems to be going great. And then she's handed this case, and it's like, are they trying to make me, accelerate into being a partner, or is this the end of my career? So, yeah, it's one of those where she's like, is this good or bad? And I don't know. But she gets sucked into this quest for justice for a young man who's been killed.
Oh, it's so interesting. Now, what ultimately, once the reader is finished, what do you hope that they kind of take away from the book? Is there a certain message that you have happening within?
Yeah, when you read one of my books, and particularly a book like Beyond Justice, what I really hope that readers leave with is this sense that no matter what happens, no matter how life falls apart around us, God is still there in the middle of it. And if we're kind of partnering with him and trying to do the best that we can with what's been put in front of us, we may not find the perfect answer, but we're going to be able to do the fullness of what he's called us to. So like in this case, the young man's dead. There's nothing she can do to bring him back, but she can find justice for his mom and his brother. And so that becomes really the quest of the story.
Absolutely. Now, what about, is this simply a standalone? Is there more to this story, more to this series, more coming?
Yeah, it's the first full-length novel in this series. Dying for Love, which is a prequel novella, is already out. And so that tells the story of one of the other law school buddies. And then Imperfect Justice will come out in January of 2018. And that tells the story of, there's a really strong secondary character. And so it's all about her hunt for justice. And again, one of those, sometimes justice is imperfect, but we still should be chasing for it.
Absolutely, absolutely. So I'd love, I mentioned in the opening that you had written the what was it? The business, Complete Idiot's Guide to Business Law, which is amazing. Yes. I love that, a whole series of books that even exists. But I'd love to talk a little bit about your background. How you got to where you are. I mean, you have a pretty incredible story. You finished schooling early, kind of across the board, went on to get your law degree and your MBA. Can you talk a little bit about that time in your life, how you got through all of that? I mean, it just must be such a pressure cooker at that time in your life, and then also go on to, be such a novelist and write, a Complete Idiot's Guide edition, which is amazing. How did all of that happen for you?
My story is it's kind of fun to look back, and I'm not really that old, but just to see all the things that I've been able to do. Right. And law school was something that really from about the time I was 12, I thought, I think I want to go to law school. And about the same time, I was like, I think I want to write books. And so I kind of had this dual love of words, writing them and then using them to persuade people. And so law school, I went to at night for 4 years while working full-time in the nonprofit field in Washington, D.C., and I was headed to Department of Justice, kind of the dream job, when my husband took a job in this little town in Indiana at a university, and I'd never been there. And I still tell people, I just said, please tell me there's a Walmart. If there's a Walmart, I can live anywhere for 2 years. And that was 14 years ago. We love Lafayette, and it's just become a great place. But this, being in Indiana, is where I met Colleen Coble, and that kind of kicked off the writing dream, because she was like, that's great, and get involved in these organizations. And so I started writing, and within a year I had my first contract, and then these books started coming out. But someone that I knew had written a couple of Complete Idiots guides and knew they were looking for someone to write the business law one. Well, I'd started teaching that at Purdue, and he's like, well, are you interested in being me? I was like, sure, I'll talk to him. How hard can it be? And it ended up being so much fun, because I love teaching business law and trying to take these complex principles and make them simple and understandable. And that's really what the Complete Idiots Guide let me do, only in a written form instead of a lecture form.
Right. And what about the writing process for that? I've always wondered, was there anything that you hit where you thought, oh, wow, I didn't think this would be maybe something that would come up in this writing process, or anything that was unexpected in writing that at all?
It's really a collaborative process between the editors, who really know what works for that series, and then me as the writer. And so we did a lot of back and forth from the beginning. And because I have taught this class now for over 10 years, I came into it knowing, okay, this is what's going to be in a business law class. Right. And so that, combined with them knowing, here's kind of the formula for a Complete Idiot's Guide and how we know to make it work, made it really a pretty straightforward process.
I'm sure, absolutely. What about for those just starting out in their writing career? They've got so much other things going on that, of course, the writing takes a back seat. Do you have any advice to them where they just don't know how to get it off the ground?
Absolutely. The first thing I would say is, what kind of books do you like to read? Because chances are what you like to read is probably going to match up with what you're going to want to write. And then I would ask, what are you willing to give up? So for me, that was giving up TV. I watch one show a year and college football, and that's about it. I don't watch a lot of movies at the movie theaters and things like that. And so I've had to choose to give some things up to make space in my life for the writing. And then get plugged in with a group like American Christian Fiction Writers or Romance Writers of America, or an organization that's going to help you meet other writers and then also train you in how to actually write a book. Absolutely.
Yeah, that's really interesting. The part about realizing that there is sometimes sacrifice involved, and putting something forward. Not many authors talk about that. I find it really interesting.
Yeah, because it really is. I mean, writing's a commitment. And so whether I'm writing a book like Beyond Justice or the book I'm getting ready to start this week, if it's 60,000 words or 90,000 words, that takes a certain amount of time to write. So I have to be willing to make the space for that. And so that means sometimes that when I'm not on a deadline, I'm doing crazy things like painting a bathroom in a couple hours, or all those things that kind of go by the wayside because I'm sitting at my computer for a couple, 3 hours a day, working on a book, doing the research, writing it, and all of those different elements that go into making a great book.
Absolutely. Now, I did want to talk a little bit about your Husker Dreams series. Can you talk a little what the series is about? You're actually re-releasing those books with new covers, and they're absolutely divine. The first two are so beautiful. I love them. So, I'd love to hear more about the series and what's happening in that story.
Sure. Well, the Husker Dreams and Ohio Bride series came out originally as kind of 50,000 word books with Heart Song Presents. And so now we're going through and we're kind of updating them a little bit, giving them the fresh covers. And I love these stories because my second passion in writing is the World War II historicals. I minored in history in college. I love World War II, just that whole idea that it really was one of the greatest generations, and the way the country came together in a way we haven't seen, and that it would be so refreshing to see today.
Absolutely.
And so I love, Husker Dreams is set in my home state of Nebraska. The first book, which won an award, is in my hometown, and it just peels back the cover on one of those hometown stories of how small town North Platte, Nebraska came together during the war. And every troop train went through North Platte, and from December 17th, 1941, so less than 2 weeks after Pearl Harbor, until April 1946, every troop train, and there were at least 8 a day, was met by volunteers. And it started with coffee and donuts, and it became this full meal and birthday cakes. And, there's a piano, and there'd be girls, and they'd dance real fast. They'd grab their food, and they'd get back on the train.
Oh my goodness.
But I got to talk to some veterans who had gone through, and one of them had been through 4 times, and he could still tell me 50 years later why he went through each time and what an impact that made on him.
Yeah.
And it still gives me goosebumps. It's just such a cool time. And so these World War II stories have allowed me to find those stories that people don't understand happened here, or Shadowed by Grace happened in Italy, and put them in the form of a story for all of us who probably wouldn't read a nonfiction thick book about it, but give it to us as a story and we'll be swept away.
Absolutely. Now, do you have plans moving forward in 2017 to release the other 2 in the series?
Yes, the other 2 will be out, and we'll actually have the 3 Ohio Bride stories as well coming out all in the next few months. So
wonderful.
So it's an exciting process, and I've got some more stories I'd love to tell like that as well.
Great. And those are available, if you wanted to get the new cover, those are available on paperback, or are they only Kindle?
They're available on ebooks, like basically all ebook formats. We're getting ready to do audiobooks, and then once all 3 are ready in each series, we'll have a paperback as well.
Wonderful. Okay. What about for the bulk of your stories, what do you use as your biggest piece of inspiration? Is it real life events? Is it just stories that develop and come to you? What sets the story for you?
It really doesn't matter if it's World War II or romantic suspense. It usually will come out of a real life event.
Okay.
So with Beyond Justice, it was reading the headlines a couple of years ago about all the unaccompanied minors that were coming up through Mexico into the United States. And I actually wondered as I was writing it, I'm like, man, is this refugee issue still going to be an issue by the time the book comes out? And all we have to do is look at the headlines. And I was in England a couple of years ago, September of 2015 for a conference, and the headlines were all of the Turkish, the Syrian immigrants going through Turkey into Greece, and the pictures of the toddlers who didn't make it. And that just tugged at my heart. And that actually became part of the story as well. Imperfect Justice came out of a headline out of Houston from June of last year. And so often it'll be some kind of trigger where it gets me going, well, what if this happened? And what if that happened? And the World War II, it's much the same. Shadowed by Grace, I found the Monuments Men. I went, this is a story nobody knows about, and we need to know about it, and just started spinning stories with it and finding the right characters to match the historical hook.
Wow, that's amazing. Now, what about you personally as you write? Are you an outline writer? Do you just kind of just gung-ho go for it? Or how are you as a writer?
I tend to be more on the outline side because a lot of my publishers have required that. And actually it makes the writing really easy because you've thought about all the different pieces ahead of time, and then it's just stringing the beads together. But with Imperfect Justice, I actually struggled quite a bit because I had the story. I knew it was going to happen. And then I realized I didn't know the heroine, which really surprised me because she's Beyond Justice. And so I thought, I know who she is. And I realized I didn't know her well enough for her to carry her own story. And so that one was a little more of backing up and getting to know the characters because I knew where the plot was headed, but I didn't have the character down enough to carry the story.
And what's the next step in that process when that happens for you personally? How do you go about learning about your heroine, discovering her?
It really changes. And it's one of the things that always makes me kind of smile because it's the heroines that I struggle with more. Heroes, I don't know why, but the heroes are just
funny.
It is. I've always thought, well, why wouldn't the heroines be easier? Since, I'm a woman, you would think that would make it easier. And I think what it is, like with when I was looking at Hayden, I knew kind of what was motivating her and where she was going. And so then I had to kind of step back with the next heroine and go, okay, so what's her story? What's her Black moment? And so really kind of peeling back and creating not a detailed biography of she likes French fries and she wants to do this and she needs to travel here, but more of figuring out, okay, what wounded her in the past? What fear is she trying to overcome today? What's the one thing she wouldn't do and how can I make her do it? And discovery process.
Absolutely. So tell us what's next. Do you have more things coming? You talked about Imperfect Justice, but that's coming in 2018. Do you have, of course, Beyond Justice, April 4th. But are you working on other stories for us? Anything that you can share?
Yeah, well, the goal is to have more of these Beyond Justice books, because when you start reading Beyond Justice, you're going to see there are a bunch of heroines going, when's my story? I want my story. And so kind of fleshing out what those will look like. And then I've got about 5 or 6 more World War II books that once I have the Nebraska and Ohio series out, I'll probably start working on those and get some fresh World War II books out as well.
Wonderful. Well, that's really exciting. And of course, we've got still a little bit of time for Beyond Justice to come out, so we'll wait patiently for that. And it's so exciting to get to talk about it a little bit early and give the fans a nice little preview to what they can get excited for to read. So thank you so much. Unfortunately, we're at the end of our chat here. I know it kind of goes quickly, but thank you so much, Cara, for joining us. We really appreciate it.
Thanks so much for having me. This was a lot of fun.
Oh, I'm glad you liked it. And everyone, don't forget, April 4th, Beyond Justice is on sale. So thank you so much, Cara. You have a great night.
Thanks, you too.
Okay. Bye, everyone.